listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
You guys, I went to Whistler.
Because you weren't cold enough in Vancouver.
Because I wasn't cold enough in Vancouver.
You are
with record
a ski bum.
Like, can you imagine me on a ski slope? Like, just what a recipe for disaster. No, I look at ski slopes and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. No desire. Willfully can't even see skiers. Like, unless you hit me with a set of skis or kick me with your boot, I don't acknowledge that you exist. Like, skiers are just not real to me.
A few years ago, I skied for the first time in like over 15 years, and it was such an amazing accomplishment. I just felt like it was hard. It wasn't fun. I was scared most of the time.
You didn't get a bit of a rush?
I got a bit of a rush, but it was like I was frightened for most of the day. Like, that was my mode. But at the end of the day, I just felt like so good about myself because I still could ski. Like, it feels amazing.
Yay. I haven't tried skiing in so long. I used to ski quite a bit. Anyway, we're really digressing off your topic. Sorry.
No. I'm completely fine. I am happy to talk about how much I hate skiing and how the two of you are rediscovering your love for it.
Right here and now.
I feel that's like, 1 against 2 is a pretty like good dynamic for this podcast frequently.
Now I'm
so
itching
it's
to
nice
go skiing.
Let's get up to the hills.
People kept asking me, they're like, oh, do you do any like outdoor winter sports? And I was like, no. What? Like, no.
You could do snowshoeing. I went snowshoeing once. It was pretty fun.
I've never done it. I'm sure it could be okay, but no.
You're more of an après ski kind of gal.
I love an après ski. Hand me a glass of wine and a fireplace and I am so happy. But because we're still not, myself and Carlos, we're still not doing indoor dining and being unmasked, I couldn't do that either. So I did my event and it went great and it was wonderful and I loved it. And I kept my mask on the entire time and I had a good microphone. So like my voice wasn't muffled. Everything was good. And we all watched the Buffy documentary. That's what I was there for. And I was even able to like sell books and sign them and stuff. And I just had and I took fancy photos on a little like step and repeat carpet thing. I took those in a mask. Eventually I did take off the mask for 10 minutes to take unmasked photos. But I was just like, let's take some with a mask on because that'll communicate how it's still good to wear a mask, right? And the photographer just looked at me. He's like, sure it will.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. Thank you. Anyway, but it was so cold, you guys. It was so cold. Like, I have talked before about how I don't really know cold. Both of you have witnessed me visit occasionally a cold climate. Both of you have expressed concern for my safety being in a cold climate.
Let's review your history.
Knit me a toque.
Let's review your history of brushes with frostbite.
They have been extensive. You're right. I got that like little bits of sort of, I have dead patches on my cheeks that come alive when I'm exposed to harsh chills, harsh wind chill.
Did that happen this time?
It was close, but I managed to make sure that so the one meal that we did eat at a restaurant, we ate outdoors, but I sat directly under a heater. So, and I managed to like make sure that, I was outside very minimally. And I put on tons and tons of like thick moisturizer. And then the next day I was barely outside at all. We went to one party that promised us outdoor activities. And that was a little bit of a lie because it was too cold even for outdoor activities at Whistler because like they promised us like ice, like
Sculptures?
snowball like throwing, and like there's an outdoor course. Like there was gonna be like
you just get
ice,
nailed with snowballs as soon as you walk
Yeah,
in.
right in the face.
Can you imagine?
Like, wow,
Yeah.
that sounds fun.
They promised axe throwing and stuff like that. And so we talked the guy into like, it was just the two of us outdoors for like a little bit because everyone else is obviously not stupid. They were all inside where it was warm and like nice. And so we're outside with like these two poor guys who have to like man all the outdoor stations. And we're like, hey, we were told that there would be axe throwing. And he was like, well, everything's kind of frozen, so the axes are just like bouncing off the
my
boards. But he's like, no one's around. You guys can try if you want. And so he went and got us axes, and we got to throw axes. And yeah, every time the axes bounced off the board because they were too frozen to be able to like penetrate.
Did you get a rush from like throwing it though? Like, did it
It
feel
felt
good?
pretty good, and I think that if it had not been frozen, I would have connected with the bullseye quite well.
There you go.
I
So
can
who's-
picture you being
Who's
good
this
at that.
person saying they're not good at outdoor activities?
Yeah.
Come on.
You're right. I take it back.
Yeah,
I'm
you take
all
that
about the
back.
outdoor activities. I did have delicious pizza in Whistler this weekend. They have this local pizza place called Fat Tony's. And I mean, I don't know if Tony himself is actually fat. I hope he is, and it's not just a case of misrepresentation. But it was delicious pizza.
What was so
Oh.
good about it?
It just had like a nice cheese quality. It wasn't like super, super saucy. The ham quality was tasty. If you like sesame seeds on a crust, they do that, but they didn't put them like so overwhelmingly that like the whole crust was saturated. So if like me, you're not the biggest fan of sesame seeds on a crust, you could just avoid those slices. And we brought it home, the leftovers, and it heated up beautifully. I don't even like leftovers, but I ate the leftovers earlier today.
Oh my God, I love
Oh,
leftovers
you mean you brought
so
it
much.
home from Whistler?
Oh yeah, Carlos carted that pizza home.
Oh,
Of course
wow.
he did. He's not going to throw out any food.
I think leftovers are. We could do a whole episode just on the beauty of leftovers. I love them
Oh
so
man.
much.
Yeah, I hate them, but he's really good about them. So
Oh, there's nothing I like more than opening the fridge, going leftovers. I don't
Really?
have to. Yes.
What? Are you serious?
Oh, I'm so serious. Yes.
Oh my! Like I open the fridge and see leftovers, and I feel really like burdened and sad because I know I have to.
Oh, I can. I just
Eat
feel so
them.
excited. I'm like, I made enough food for 2 meals. Like I can't. I just think that's the best thing, and it always tastes better the next day.
Really?
Yeah, to me.
I believe the opposite. And I
The second
feel
day
like
to me
this,
is
I feel like this guilt because you're like you don't want to waste food, and it's like you have to eat the stuff so you can like have a fresh meal again. And
No,
that feels
that's
just
nothing-
like
you could take it for your lunch, and it's heated up in the microwave, and you just feel so swanky that you cooked food. And I love the whole thing about leftovers.
that's so nice. I can never wrap my brain around thinking like that. I just get bored because I'm just like, oh, I want something different today.
I can eat the same thing every day, though. I could eat the same salad every day and I practically have for most of my life. So
Wow.
oh wow. I wish
Yeah.
I could do that actually.
it's
Did you ever hear the story about like Courtney Cox on Friends? She made the same Cobb salad every day,
I've heard
for-
that. Yeah.
all the filming, and she would like eventually like I think she eventually like brought one for Jennifer Aniston and one for
Lisa Kudrow.
Lisa Kudrow, and the three of them just like ate their Cobb salads every day while filming.
But I'll tell you something interesting. Then this morphed into the Jennifer Aniston salad, which is not the Jennifer Aniston salad because it is a Cobb salad. But I ate the thing called the Jennifer Aniston salad, and I really liked it.
What
Even
is
though
it?
Jennifer Aniston herself said, that's not my salad.
But like what kind of salad is it? What's in it?
It was like quinoa, chickpeas, cucumber, feta cheese, mint, fresh mint, and pistachio nuts.
Oh yeah.
That
And
sounds
I made
pretty
it,
good.
and it was delicious.
I gotta say, I love a salad with some grilled halloumi.
Oh well, hello.
A lesser
So good.
a lesser celebrity would have just taken credit for inventing an amazing salad like that.
I mean, to be fair, Jennifer Aniston did say she thought the salad looked good. It just isn't her salad.
But so she has a salad,
But she does have, it's a Cobb salad.
but she wasn't sharing the recipe for it.
Yeah, no, I think they shared it. I saw the real
I'm pretty sure
salad.
it's Courtney Cox's recipe, like her Cobb salad, whatever.
Did you try that salad, Lisa?
No, I don't mind a Cobb salad, but it's not my most favorite salad. It's too much preparation, too much work. Got to cook up a lot of bacon and eggs.
That's what makes a salad good. Bacon.
Bacon.
Well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with putting bacon on your salad. It's just that it's a lot of work to get that salad. Whereas the other one, the other Jennifer Aniston salad, the faux Jennifer Aniston salad, is actually quite easy to prepare.
I mean, I gotta say, this is maybe one of the strangest pivots in the world. I would rather eat that salad any day than the first meal that our
The cream, spinach, and eggs?
beautiful leads order together. Creamed spinach and eggs. Is that a meal straight out of the 50s? Is that what I'm missing? Like, was that
Never heard of it
classic-
before.
Never heard of
classic,
it. With a
like-
martini is the cap to me.
just a wild order? And they just pretended it was normal. And
I'll have the same.
it's the only thing that stood out to me in an otherwise perfect film of being in absolutely flawed detail. But I also really liked it.
What do you think was a flawed detail in that it didn't exist, or is just a bad thing to order?
Just pretending that that's like a normal dish that fancy women would have ordered in the 1950s. Creamed spinach and eggs and a dry
maybe
martini.
there is some kind of fad diet happening at the time.
Maybe. And you're right. I know the filmmakers are perfectionists for details, but like I couldn't handle it. That this was the hot meal to set off this like hot
There are lots
romance.
of recipes for it here, I'm finding. So.
Cream spinach and eggs.
And as it turns out, it's a keto dish. So, but
yeah.
keto.
I'm gonna try it.
pre-
I'm gonna try it.
Pre-keto. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, with that, let us move to an otherwise flawless film. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And we're finally we've done some great stuff in the last few weeks. But I feel like we're finally watching a Christmas film, or a film set at Christmas at the very least, that's truly spectacular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know people have recommended we do this over the years. I know that our dear friends at Warriors, Bards, and Brews, this is one of their favorite films. They love it so much. And I know that we've talked about it over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad. You know what? I feel like I'm really glad I'm watching it this year. It just felt good to watch. Ultimately, they're hard moments, but it's nice to see a romance where you root for both of the people in it.
Yeah, and I was thinking while I was watching it that, you know, there should be space in your Christmas repertoire of movies for a movie that makes you feel like melancholy, you know, or like a blue even. Like Christmas movies don't all have to give you that like sort of happy, joyful, funny rom-com kind of feeling.
Hey, we're not talking about Love Actually.
I was gonna say, have you watched Love Actually with us? Like that's my argument every year, as I love to be bummed out at Christmas. But I like this movie is obviously like there's moments of real heartbreak and stuff, but like I mean, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched it before, but like, there's something so beautifully hopeful about the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was loving every second of it. Took me a while to be like, oh, I can see what Carol sees in Therese. Took me a while. I wasn't leaping on the Therese train right away.
Was this the first time you saw the movie?
This is my first time.
Oh, wow.
Lisa, was it your first time?
No, I've seen it before. I have read the book.
You're an expert then. Okay,
well,
good.
It was a long time ago I read the book, and it's a lot more about Therese and was a lot more in her place as opposed to the mixing it up with Carol.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think we always felt it was even though it's called Carol, it does feel like Therese's story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's read some background and synopsis stuff, and then let's get into it. Would anybody like to read the background?
I will take on that, yes. Carol is a 2015 romantic period film directed by Todd Haynes. The screenplay by Phyllis Nagy is based on the 1952 romance novel The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith, republished as Carol in 1990. The film stars Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara, Sarah Paulson, Jack Lacey, and Kyle Chandler. Carol premiered at the Cannes Film Festival on May 17, 2015, and was released in the United States on November 20th and in the UK on November 27th. Grossing over $42 million on an $11 million budget, the film was praised for Haynes' direction and the performance of Blanchett and Mara, and was the best reviewed film of 2015.
Okay, so they were nominated for quite a few Oscars that year too.
Except.
Cate Blanchett got the lead actress. Rooney Mara got the supporting actress, although that seems weird too because they're kind of co-leads. But yeah, no nomination for directing, no nomination for Best Picture. And you know which, I looked it up. Do you know which two movies won that year? Spotlight won Best Picture, and The Revenant, or Alejandro G. Inarritu, won for The Revenant. And like, who is watching those movies today? I ask you. But we are watching Carol.
Absolutely. Proudly watching Carol. At the very least, Phyllis Nagy won for Best Adapted Screenplay. That's like something. That's good.
But I would say that it's spectacular. The direction is what really makes this film. I really think that.
I agree. I'm a huge fan of Todd Haynes.
Oh, it's
I
absolutely scandalous that he was not nominated and that it was not nominated for Best Picture. Like, that's outrageous and feels blatantly homophobic, frankly. And also that, like, they're just like, oh, it's a story about women? Who cares? Lesbian women? Who extra cares, you know? That doesn't feel good at all. So, like, my small bit of comfort is that, like, one of the women behind the scenes, Phyllis, who won for Best Adapted Screenplay, she'd been working on it since 1997.
Wow.
And she's also a lesbian. She's one of, like, her and Christine Vachon, one of the executive producers. They're both lesbians. I think that they really infuse this movie with, like, so much queer heart, and obviously Patricia Highsmith, like, they're working with, you know, text that is inherently queer as well. But I'm like, so nothing about this film feels exploitative. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, there's nothing there for the male gaze. Like, I think, like, there's so much that's so beautiful about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the criticism at the time talked about how it's notably a movie that's made for the lesbian point of view.
It's a pro ultimately, but it could, you know, alienate some very fragile male film critics, I suppose.
Yes.
And
No,
Oscar
I didn't mean it
voters.
was I didn't mean to say it was a criticism. I was saying that people were applauding it because it was made.
Oh, yes, yes,
from
okay. Yeah,
a
that makes
lesbian
more
point of view.
sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, like I feel like the three of us would definitely applaud it, but I think it does. It like obviously sort of like, I mean, yes, it was one of the best reviewed films of 2015, so that's great. But like, there's obviously a disconnect between the voting academy
Yeah.
and like everybody else. Like that's because
mean-
it's so like wonderful. They just like didn't see the work in it, and because like no one was traumatized by a bear in the woods. Like that just was like there's just a lack of survival. Like this movie is such a survival movie though. Like there's so much work going into like it just so much nuance in this script.
And it's exceptional on so many levels. Like if you're looking at the set design, like because I've seen this
Costumes.
movie a few times, and this time I really noticed how, you know, like all the sets were kind of like drab backgrounds, like in 1950s, very drab, and then it would have these like pops of red in pretty much every scene, like red lipstick on the women or red nail polish, red hats, red scarf, red shoes. Like something would be like a brilliant red in every scene, set against this like kind of grays and greens backdrop.
Yeah, even the tartan hat won me over at some point. I was just like, well, you know what? That's her style. Great work, Therese. Great work.
Well, the Santa hat was also very sweet.
The Santa hat was very cute too. I also just really enjoyed, like, in terms of sort of from a scripting level, like the very specific, like the boyfriend, Jake Lacey, being like his character calling her Terry all the time, which sounded so hard and kind of plain compared to like the way Carol, like Kate Blanchett, says Therese. Like every time she said Therese, wouldn't you just melt into a puddle right in your shoes? And then to have to go to this like man who says Terry so casually, it's almost an insult.
You know, we haven't done the synopsis yet.
Oh yeah, there's
just in case anyone's listening and they have no idea what we're talking about at all.
Fair enough. AG, do you want to read the synopsis or you want me to?
Sure, I can read it. Carol follows two women from very different backgrounds who find themselves in an unexpected love affair in 1950s New York. As conventional norms of the time challenge their undeniable attraction, an honest story emerges to reveal the resilience of the heart in the face of change. A young woman in her 20s, Therese Belivet, is a clerk working in a Manhattan department store and dreaming of a more fulfilling life when she meets Carol, an alluring woman trapped in a loveless, convenient marriage. As an immediate connection sparks between them, the innocence of their first encounter dims and their connection deepens. While Carol breaks free from the confines of marriage, her husband begins to question her competence as a mother as her involvement with Therese and close relationship with her best friend Abby come to light. That is from Wiki Fandom.
I like that synopsis. I feel like it really like understood the movie and it wanted to like speak lovingly and glowingly of it.
Yeah. It was the best one I could find for sure.
Yeah. So you have read the book, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like? I haven't read it.
It's like, if you like, it has that fantastic feel of a 1950s book. It's very sparse. It's very clean. It's very, just it's almost a simple story, I would say. And just a love story, but it's very much from the kind of drabness of Therese's life and how it gets a lot brighter with Carol around. So I think it's just a really beautifully, I just thought it was one of the most beautiful books I've ever read.
Oh, that's such a wonderful recommendation. I'm going to read it immediately over Christmas.
Well,
yes,
Patricia
I think you'll love
Highsmith,
it.
she also wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah,
Sure did.
she did. And
Yeah.
I was going to say Purple Noon, but Purple Noon is based on The Talented Mr. Ripley, right?
Yeah.
The movie? Yeah.
I think
She's such an incredible writer. Like I really, and I actually kind of want to rewatch The Talented Mr. Ripley now, and reread it. It's been a while, But also just thinking about like her writing this under a pseudonym, publishing it in 1952, and in the outline that you provided, AG, talking about how like the novel was just kind of groundbreaking at the time because it actually depicted lesbians who weren't, you know, quote unquote, afflicted with a psychiatric disorder. Like it refuses to participate in that kind of narrative. And the movie does such a great job. Like when Carol says that what's the use of living against the grain, or I can't remember the exact quote, but it was really beautifully phrased and I'm blowing it. But like the speech that she gives in the custody fight for her daughter, it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just such a striking moment in movies because like how often do we see a mother, you know, choose to preserve herself and give up, you know, a custody fight for her child. Like that isn't often a choice we see women make in stories.
Especially at a time like this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I have hope for her that eventually when the husband character, who I think Kyle Chandler does a good job playing Harge, there are moments where you almost like feel empathy, at least for like him, you know, loving someone who cannot love him the way that he wants to be loved by her. And obviously then it goes very poorly. I was very concerned when the gun came in to play. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, please, 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 please don't make this like where there's like, you know, hate crime and violence. And I know that is a real thing, of course, but I really wanted this movie to go in a different direction, and it did, which I was so grateful for. But like I also just feel like it's like it's something that was so particular to like the custody battle over Rindy. I feel like sort of Cate Blanchett did a beautiful job of sort of making clear that she can only be the kind of person who she can live with being, which will impact how the kind of mother that she can live with being for her daughter in this capacity. You know, she can't be blackmailed to stay in this marriage that will kill her one way or another along the line, and she can hopefully eventually like tuck back like more and more time with her daughter, that this is maybe a for now situation, that she's like doing the best thing for now, you know? I feel like it's not the kind of thing where she's going to necessarily rest about like, you know, kind of pursuing more and more custodial visits down the line, you know? And I really appreciate that the movie sort of communicates that as well. And she says in the aftermath of it, like that she's seen her once or twice, which is very sad, but that, you know, she's hopeful that it will increase.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was rather heartbreaking though. I wonder how many times Patricia Highsmith had seen maybe that same situation play out, because it is loosely based on her life. And, you know, on a chance encounter she had with someone in a store as well. That's where the story began. So you wonder how much else was based on things she'd seen.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I meant by the melancholy feeling just kind of being pervasive for me in this movie, is just like thinking about that time and like being like not sort of like being trapped in a marriage at that time and not or being a young person and not having options. And I don't know, it's just like it puts me in this space where like you just feel very like, you know, I know it ends on a hopeful note, but you just feel sad at all of those like missed opportunities and missed connections that people had to live through in that era.
Well, and the like, you know, how being gay was like considered a psychiatric you know, diagnosis, a mental health problem. And
And you could lose your children and job and whatever.
Yeah, like effectively criminalized,
Yeah.
like it's not that long ago. That's
Yeah, I
the
know.
other thing
Yeah.
that just
It's
like
not that long ago.
just leaps up and really smacks you in the face that like this is not distant. This is not like not so distant history. It's not ancient history, like this is 17 years before Stonewall.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the city that they're living in. It's New York, and it's supposed to be free, and there's supposed to be so many things happening, and there's supposed to be so much like sort of liberal thinking, but I don't know, man. It also sort of, I think, does a really beautiful job of showing us that sort of like part of history that's a little bit been erased by representation in media of like so many people had to be so closeted, had to live behind doors, had to like have those sneaking glances and those furtive relationships and keep everything so secret. And I think that this movie does such a good job of like showing how people are still trying to, especially like these women, are still so earnestly trying to live full lives when they are like, really in danger of this part of themselves being revealed publicly.
Well, that's why the film to me had a real claustrophobic quality to it. Even though there is a road trip that goes on, they have to keep their life, the time they can be together in such small places, like in those wooden booths in a restaurant, in these hotel rooms that were quite bleak for the most part.
Yeah.
An apartment, a house. It had such a feeling of being like so close to everything in this movie to me.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't, and especially like in the car when like even just the act of like taking off the sweater in the car, like I don't know, just
Mhm.
yeah, just living on top of each other and yeah, I hadn't thought about that at all, but the like framing is really specific.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I think you can come back to this movie over the years and you see something different in it every time you watch it.
How many
Mhm.
times have you watched it, AG?
I watched it like probably 3 or 4 times, and yeah, it's just because it's like it is a sort of holiday esque movie. Um, and yeah,
I mean, she wears a Santa hat. That's holiday.
you just
What are you gonna do?
appreciate you just like have an appreciation for a different thing like every time you see it. For a while, it was just like I said, like it was just like the reds in the movie. I was like, that 1950s red lipstick color that's this like perfect orange red kind of thing. I just love that, and just seeing it like in every single scene. And then, like just kind of like that atmosphere of New York in that time in the 1950s and what it was like to be, 20, and just like thinking of Therese's life and, her beginnings as a photographer at the New York Times. Like that's kind of amazing. Yeah.
The fact that like she is like I was so curious about the way that they sort of like the way that Rooney Mara plays Therese. And so she's got this boyfriend, Jake Lacey, and then his character's best friend feels free to like hit on this woman who he knows that his best friend wants to marry. And she's pretty chill about their kiss, and then but leaves quite quickly because it's not quite what she wants. And the Therese as universal object of desire in the world of this film, neat.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that. I hadn't thought of it quite like that.
Like
There is such
like-
a coolness to her, though, that makes her very seductive.
Yeah, I guess. Like it took me a little bit of time to warm up to the character and to maybe Rooney Mara. I'm not sure. And eventually, like I did for sure, and I'm very enthusiastic about this relationship. But but like it took me a little while, and I thought, are we gonna have to have the entire conversation when we talk about this film be like just trying to convince me that Therese is worthy of Carol's interest? Like, but then I kind of saw, like, I think when they introduce Sarah Paulson as Abby, you can see that she's like kind of a little more polished version of Therese on some level. Mm-hmm. And the more that we get to spend time with Therese, we understand that she has a point of view. She obviously has an artistic eye. She's not just some, you know, kind of like slightly meek person, or as she describes herself, someone who just like never knows what she wants and says yes to everything because she doesn't know what to say no to. Like we see her have like some pretty hard growing up to do in the aftermath of Carol leaving her. And I thought they just did a really incredible job with that character. And I like that I didn't love her instantly, as opposed to everyone else in the film who loves her instantly.
I also really kind of have grown to appreciate the friendship between Carol and Abby.
Yes.
Yeah, there could have been more of that, I think.
I would watch that entire film.
Yeah, exactly.
Just Carol and Abby, just having drinks, lighting each other's cigarettes, and talking about life.
Yeah.
What a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's such a lovely depiction of friendship. Like, yeah, and the two actresses are obviously excellent, but just like the rapport that you can see that they have like on screen is just beautiful to see.
And I think it like makes so much sense that like they play multi-layered levels of history together. Like they went from being best friends to lovers to exes who are still best friends. Like that's not the easiest journey to navigate, I assume. I'm not, working from personal experience in this one, but I would assume there's contours to that. But they do it so beautifully. And like, as like Carol and Abby have their relationship, then Abby develops her own relationship with Therese in this really interesting way that I thought was really compelling. Like, they go from being people who might be sort of considered, a bit like rivals with each other to like Abby really kind of comes to be like genuinely, I think, caring for Therese.
Yeah. Well,
agreed.
and it's just like that like dynamic of like when Carol has to return from the road trip, immediately, and she sends Abby to go drive Therese back with the car. That's real friendship there.
Mm-hmm.
So would either of you, let's just say, theoretically, I'm Carol, and I call on either of you to come drive my jilted young lover home under the veil of, like, honestly, like, just unimaginable consequences for, like, sort of the reality of your relationships coming to light. Like, that's an incredible, like, that is, Abby is the friend for life.
Yeah.
The ride or die.
That's the ride or die for sure.
Yeah.
Also, I know this is petty, but I've been lately being extremely petty about children in these episodes, fictional children, not children I know. But like this week, all I could think about was like, why is this kid's name Rindy? Why would they do this to her? Why would they do this to her?
What sort of a name is Rindy?
I've never heard that
name.
name.
Is Harge. What's Harge?
Those names are. But yet, Carol is a pretty common name.
Yeah, I mean, Harge is also like, Harge was an interesting one because I've known tons of people. Well, I've known tons of she calls him Hargeson at one point. I don't know. Maybe it's like the mother's last name or something. I've known lots of Harges, but they've always been like Harjeets or like
really.
Yeah. Like growing up, I knew like a lot of Harjeets and like, but like not like this guy with Harge. That was, but anyway, Harge and Rindy are these. I guess these are supposed to be like upper class names, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sorry, I have one more question, and the two of you are experts in 1950s high society life.
Yeah,
Sure,
that's
yeah.
Definitely.
So I
but
feel
by
like
the
you'll be
way,
able to-
I don't have I have a driver's license technically, but I haven't driven in many years. So I mean, I would come and
Yeah.
pick that person up, but it would be very like fraught driving on the way home, I feel.
That's really generous. Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
paying for my ticket to get to the hotel.
Yeah,
as
I'd
well,
pay for
right?
the ticket because
Yeah,
I'm
and
rich
the
in this
meals on the way
scenario.
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll do that.
Yeah,
like a bit
generous
of a
per
trip.
diem.
Yeah.
Generous per diem is what I offer
Excellent,
in
yes.
my friendship level. No, so okay, I have a question about timing of certain things. So they have their creamed spinach and egg martini lunch. And then Abby picks Carol up and drives her to this Christmas party that's black tie and seems to be starting at 2, 3 in the afternoon with a full like combo of musicians and dancing. What is happening in the universe of this
Unless
movie?
The lunch
have-
went on a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I mean, Therese only has a certain break from work. I mean, she does obviously quit her job to go on the road with this woman she doesn't know, which is, wonderful,
think
and that's
we
exactly
have-
what you should do in your early 20s. But
we have no idea how the other half lives. That's
I
what
guess
know.
not.
They're having parties all day. The clock means nothing to them.
Yeah.
just a 3 p.m. champagne soiree. Wild.
Yeah,
But
but also
yeah,
very exciting.
that is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
And also, did you think about how women wore high heels in the house in the 1950s?
I think about that all the time.
I was seeing Carol decorate that tree in heels, and I was just like, why? That would, your feet must be in so much pain. That must be killing you.
Well, she took off her shoes to have that. She was relaxing with Therese, and she
Yeah.
was having a nice time. And then her husband comes home, and she has to put on the high heels again.
Yeah.
If that's not an indication that you should definitely follow through with your divorce, I don't know what is.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't even take your shoes off.
yeah, I don't know.
Imagine having to decorate your Christmas tree, climb a stepladder in heels.
In high heels.
It's kind of a pretty picture, though.
It was a pretty picture.
Mhm.
I also just think about how wild it would be to, so you're sort of it's unspoken, but obviously there's a mutual attraction between these two women, and the really the only option is hanging out with each other either at a lunch, because that's very women who lunch, or privately in each other's homes. So you invite this person to your New Jersey country estates or whatever. I don't know if it was an estate necessarily, but
it seemed like it was.
it seemed
a big
pretty
large
estatey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed pretty estatey.
Required a housekeeper or cook.
Yeah, a live-in, yeah, who looked very disapproving, by the way.
Yeah.
She had big homophobia eyes. But she just, so Therese just goes over there and really who knows how she's
Yeah.
getting back home. And
Yeah.
it ends up being kind of a sad and frustrating end to the what had otherwise seemed like a really magical day. That train ride back from Jersey would have seemed so long and so sad. And we obviously see her have this, breakdown coming back home. And I just the mechanics of it all, just how much time everything takes
Mm-hmm.
in 1952, in addition to the levels of secrecy and criminalization and, just widespread homophobia and homosexual panic. This movie really, I think, does such an incredible job of handling the melancholy, as you pointed out, but also still telling a love story that feels like you're breathing fresh air.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Todd Haynes' movies. Like, have you seen, or TV shows, have you seen Mildred Pierce?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, you should. He's so amazing at sort of depicting women's like lives where they are constrained by the choices they are given by society and have different wants and needs than what society is telling them that they have to be. And
We started the year by watching that Julianne Moore film by Todd Haynes, right? Or it was early on in the
Safe.
year, I think.
Safe? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was last year. I don't know. It was at some point though.
Yeah.
Time is not real. We know that. But I can really like appreciate his like trajectory as a filmmaker and the way in which he does bring this genuine curiosity and humanity to women's lives. Like
have you seen Far From Heaven?
Yeah.
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 I have not.
Oh, it's great.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that Julianne Moore as well?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I told this story before on like the podcast that we did, the last Todd Haynes movie that we talked about, which was either this year or last year or the year before. None of us know. But I was in New York once and my husband Joe was at a film conference and I decided just to tag along to see the night of films because there's like a special guest listed on the program. And the special guest ended up being Todd Haynes. And
Wow.
he had brought the very first movie he ever made, Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story, to screen because it had screened like in 1987 when it was first released, and then it was yanked because they couldn't get the music rights from the Carpenters to show the movie. And so it was the first time he himself had seen the movie on the big screen since like 1987. And he's just this like totally unassuming guy. He's wearing a backpack, around the theater and just casual. And he went up and said it, talked about the movie a little bit and then just sat down and watched it with us. And it was just like amazing. And that was just a few years after Carol came out. So it was, yeah. I was just a little pretty starstruck.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's lovely. I like that. I like that memory, and I know I have heard it before, but I really like it.
Well, it's one of those things that like I'm never gonna forget that night. Like,
yeah,
it was amazing.
No, of course,
yeah,
of course. Well, and the other thing that I really like about this movie. And again, I think like who Todd Haynes has surrounded himself with for a very long time. So I was talking before about Christine Vachon, one of his like producing partners, and she's a producer on this film as well. And so her and Todd Haynes and Barry Ellsworth, they like met. They were all alums of Brown University, and they got together and formed this nonprofit company that, quote, was deeply inspired by the anti-Hollywood New York film scene. And it oversaw the production of 7 films in 5 years, including the Karen Carpenter one that you're just talking about. And a bunch of other stuff that was like pretty incredible. And so Christine is the one who brought Phyllis Nagy's script to Todd Haynes to direct, and he agreed to direct it, Carol. And her father was a famous New York photographer, and her mother, some kind of relation to like some kind of like, oh yeah, she's related to the French costume designer Sarah Montfort, and these are these are the kind of people that Todd Haynes surrounds himself with, like Phyllis and Christine, and they all make beautiful work together.
Agreed. That's beautiful. I love that story.
Well, I was reading in this essay by Patricia White on Public Books that like when Phyllis Nagy, like she realized that Todd Haynes would have a sympathetic sensibility towards, especially like the sex scene in the movie, when it was like he set it in like a dingy hotel room. Like she knew that he was going to not like kind of, sexualize it or from the male gaze kind of point of view. It was going to be like true to the story. And that's when she like felt confident in that he was the right director for the movie.
That's so great.
It wasn't going to be exploitative. That's what I meant.
Yeah. No, I love the feeling of this whole film. And like, yeah, it's totally, I love and appreciate the buildup of sexual tension. So that when it finally does like explode.
Yeah.
Hot stuff.
I think it's also one of the best final scenes of a movie.
Yes.
Ever. Like that. One of the, like, yeah, Patricia White called it like the money shot at the end of the film when Carol is like gives that look to the camera. Yeah. What an incredible ending. What an incredible final scene. Like
oh, I know. I love it. And I love like an ending that you can like accept as ambiguous, Like it still feels celebratory. It still feels like there's hope. We don't know exactly where things are going to go, but we've seen Therese sort of take an initial stand and sort of lick her wounds a little bit and then realize that she is certainly not the one who has had to sacrifice the most in this situation.
Yeah.
And to answer the question, because I'm not usually the biggest Cate Blanchett fan.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this.
Yes. I quite liked her, and I thought her hair was quite amazing, just to be petty. Just how she held it together and looked so sophisticated no matter what was happening was quite I can't imagine anyone being able to pull that off as well as she did. So I'll give it an A+.
She was made for being in these movies set in this era.
Yeah, I agree.
Like this in The Talented Mr. Ripley, like she looks perfect.
Yes.
In both of the movies.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, think that this film pops big time.
Oh, big pops. Big pops. Yeah.
Huge.
Exactly.
Well, we love to also recommend other things we love. And AG, do you want to go first?
Sure. I was just kind of thinking about my favorite TV shows that I saw this year. And one of them that I think is kind of underrated is a show called Mo that's streaming on Netflix right now. It stars Mo Amer, who's a stand-up comedian, as the titular character. And it's sort of loosely based around his own life as a Palestinian refugee living in Houston, Texas. It was co-created with Rami Youssef. It's a really funny show and extremely original, and I highly recommend everybody watch it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to go way off and just mention that everyone should go to YouTube, and you can find a spoof of Carol with Kate McKinnon and Jane Lynch, and it is from the Independent Spirit Awards, and it's Kumail Nanjiani as well, and it is one of the funniest things I remember seeing in 2016, and now I'm going to recommend watching that after you watch the movie Carol.
Incredible. I'm also going in a completely different direction. I am recommending an Instagram account and its website, just because I felt like I was not paying enough attention personally. And it's, matters that are pretty important to me and important to a lot of people I know. But the protests happening in Iran and in response to the killing of Mahsa Amini, there is a Instagram account called Middle East Matters, and they have all kinds of information about what is happening, what the protesters are asking for. They're fact-checking some misinformation. Recently, in the last day or so, it was sort of reported widely that the morality police were going to be discontinued. That is not the case. There's lots of things happening right now in Iran, and specifically, about women demanding, freedom from these morality police and mandatory dress codes and bigger things that are happening in the country. So I wanted to learn a bit more about it because I haven't been paying enough attention. And there are protests happening and actions happening around the world in support. So if you want to know more, Middle East Matters on Instagram. It's all one word. And they have a website with lots of information as well. And, by and about the people who are directly involved with the action on the ground.
That's a great recommendation. Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I got that recommendation because I think it's important to give credit. And this is from Ijoma Aluo had posted something on Instagram, and someone wrote a response to just correct some misinformation, and she shared that correction and thanked them publicly for just drawing attention to it. And Middle East Matters was the recommendation for where to follow for up-to-date information about what is happening in Iran. Women, life, freedom.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you guys. I really love talking to you every week. I love everyone who listens to us. And thank you everyone for hanging out with us on the various social media channels. If you would like to email us, you can email us at popthiscollective at gmail.com. And if you'd like to rate and review us, please 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. I believe that's the site now. I don't know. iTunes, whatever.
You'll find us.
You'll
your
find
favorite podcatcher. That's what they say nowadays.
Yes.
Sure, that's good too.
Podcatcher?
Yeah. I think so.
I didn't know that.
They just catch us like these tiny, heavy balls of weighted voices. They pass them back and forth.
Well, thank you to our co-host and director of our podcatcher here. Am I even using that
No,
correctly?
you're not. Not at all.
But you know what? Stay innocent, Lisa. I like it.
Okay. Isn't that how you put your goji berries in your Dropbox? Is that?
Yep. No, you got it right.
I got it right? Okay.
That's
I stole that
exactly.
from Bobby Monahan from Drunk Uncle on Saturday Night Live. It was one of my favorite lines. So I'll continue using podcatcher the wrong way. And thank you very much. And it's always a treat to get to share all of our antics with you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.